family in Fulton County preparing to celebrate their first Christmas without their father after police say he was shot and killed outside of a fast food restaurant earlier this month.
In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear.
I still haven't processed it yet. It doesn't seem real.
That's Amari Goodman talking about her father, 43-year-old Dominique Goodman, shot and killed outside a Bojangles on December 7th. Not during a robbery, not some random street beef. A manager at Bojangles decided to execute a man in a parking lot because that man came to check on his daughter. Girl, this story is going to make you sick. Let me tell you who Dominique Goodman was, because his name needs to mean something more than just another headline. 43 years old, father of 5 children, had a 6th baby on the way. This man worked at a law office doing intake and other tasks for attorney Robert Williams Jr. And listen, Williams didn't just employ him. They were friends, real friends. Williams would later say,
Mr. Goodman was my friend. He worked with me doing intakes and things like that in my law office. And that's why this case really touched my heart.
Dominique was the kind of man who showed up for his kids, for his work, for his family. When his daughter Amari turned 19 and got herself a job at Bojangles in Palmetto, he was proud. She was working, handling her business, learning responsibility. That's what parents want to see. Amari describes her father simply,
My dad was a great man, a very hardworking man.
Not complicated, not dramatic, just a man who did what he was supposed to do. But hey, doing what you're supposed to do doesn't guarantee you'll make it home at night. Not when somebody else has already decided you won't. December 7th starts like any other shift for Amari. She clocks in at the Bojangles in Palmetto, Fulton County. Regular Tuesday evening. She's got her routine, her tasks, her coworkers, and she's got her manager, Maurice Evans. Now, something happens during that shift. Maurice Evans starts harassing Amari. The details of exactly what he said or did, Amari keeps that private. But whatever it was, it crossed a line. It escalated into an argument. The kind of situation where a 19-year-old girl looks around and realizes she needs backup. So she calls her father. Dominique answers. Of course he does. That's what he does. His daughter needs him. He's coming. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Other people at the restaurant see what's happening. They step in. They tell Maurice Evans to go home. Leave. Take yourself out of this situation before it gets worse. Just go home. Maurice Evans does not go home. Let me say that again so it's clear. This man was told to leave the premises, remove himself from the situation, and instead, Maurice Evans walks outside to the parking lot and waits, with a gun. He positions himself where he can see the entrance, where he can watch the road, where he'll have a clear view of any car that pulls up. He knows Dominique is on his way. Amari called her father. Evans knows a man is coming to check on his daughter, and Maurice Evans decides that when that man arrives, he's going to kill him. Inside the restaurant, Amari is probably thinking her dad's going to show up, talk to Maurice, straighten this whole thing out. A conversation between adults. That's how these things are supposed to work. You talk, you resolve it, you move on. She has no idea her manager is outside in the parking lot with a weapon, waiting for her father like he's setting up an ambush. Dominique Goodman pulls into that Bojangles parking lot. It's December, so it's dark early. The restaurant lights are bright against the night. Cars coming and going. People picking up their orders. Normal evening activity. Dominique parks, gets out of his car, He's probably scanning the area, looking for his daughter, looking for the manager he needs to speak with. He's a father handling a situation. That's it. That's all this is supposed to be. Maurice Evans has been waiting for this exact moment. What happens next takes seconds, maybe a minute at most. But it changes everything for 5 children. For a woman carrying Dominique's 6th child. For Amari, who will spend the rest of her life knowing she made that phone call. Maurice Evans shoots Dominique Goodman in that parking lot. Not in self-defense. Dominique wasn't armed. He wasn't aggressive. He was a father showing up for his daughter. Evans shoots him anyway. The man who was told to go home. The man who chose to wait with a gun. The man who had every opportunity to de-escalate, to walk away, to handle this like an actual adult. Maurice Evans pulls that trigger and kills Dominique Goodman right there in front of the Bojangles. Amari's father collapses in the parking lot. The man who answered her phone call. The man who got in his car without hesitation. The man who worked hard, showed up for his 5 kids, had a baby on the way, did intakes at a law office, led by example. Gone. Just like that. Amari would later say about Maurice Evans,
He isn't a man. Any man would have stood up to another man, had a conversation with them about their daughter.
and she's right. Because whatever Maurice Evans is, he's not a man. A man doesn't execute someone's father in a parking lot. A man doesn't lie in wait with a weapon for someone who's coming to check on their child. A man doesn't do what Maurice Evans did on December 7th. The police arrive. Emergency services arrive. But there's nothing they can do for Dominique Goodman. He's dead at the scene. Shot outside a fast food restaurant. His daughter inside, having to process that the man she called for help is never going to help her again. Make it make sense.
Channel 2's Michael Seiden is live in Palmetto tonight. And Michael, you learned this father, he was simply trying to make sure that his daughter was safe.
Yeah, the victim's 19-year-old daughter worked here. She told me that her father was simply doing what any loving dad would do, stepping in to make sure his daughter was okay when her co-worker shot and killed him in the parking lot of this Bojangles.
Oh, I still haven't processed it yet. It doesn't seem real.
For the first time in her life, 19-year-old Amari Goodman is preparing for Christmas without her father. 43-year-old Dominique Goodman, who was shot and killed earlier this month in the parking lot of this Bojangles in Palmetto.
I don't even want to celebrate Christmas because it doesn't feel right.
Amari says she was working her shift at Bojangles when she says her manager, Maurice Evans, began harassing her, a situation that escalated into an argument. Amari says she called her father for help. Police say Evans was told to go home, but instead he waited in the parking lot with a gun until Amari's father arrived.
He isn't a man. Any man would have stood up to another man, had a conversation with them about their daughter.
Tonight, Amari's remembering her father as an incredible man who led by example, an ambitious dad of 5 with a baby girl on the way.
My dad was a great man, a very hardworking man.
For family friend and attorney Robert Williams Jr., this case is personal.
Mr. Goodman was my friend. He worked with me doing intakes and things like that in my law office. And that's why this case really touched my heart.
Williams says since the December 7th tragedy, he and his team have launched their own investigation into his friend's accused killer.
There's evidence that this gentleman was using drugs during his shift at work at Bojangles.
And tonight, Maurice Evans remains behind bars without bond. He's charged with murder and aggravated assault. As for this grieving family, as you can imagine, they've got a lot of bills, a lot of things going on in their lives. They've set up a GoFundMe page. If you'd like to help them out, we've posted all the details on our website, WSBTV.com. We're live in Palmetto. Michael Seiden, Channel 2 Action.
The Palmetto Police Department responds to a shooting at Bojangles. They arrive to find Dominique Goodman dead in the parking lot. Witnesses everywhere. Employees who saw the argument inside. People who heard the gunshots. Customers who watched Maurice Evans standing there with a weapon. This is not a complicated case. There's no mystery about who pulled the trigger. Maurice Evans is right there. The weapon is right there. The victim is right there. Witnesses are giving statements in real time. But here's what investigators start piecing together that makes this even worse. Because it's not just about what happened in that parking lot. It's about what was happening before Dominique ever got that phone call from his daughter. Robert Williams Jr., Dominique's friend and employer, launches his own investigation into Maurice Evans. Williams is an attorney. He knows how to dig. He knows what questions to ask. And what he finds, he doesn't keep to himself. Williams later states,
There's evidence that this gentleman was using drugs during his shift at work at Bojangles.
so now we're looking at a manager who was allegedly high at work, harassing a 19-year-old employee, escalating an argument, refusing to leave when told, waiting in a parking lot with a gun, and executing a man who came to check on his daughter. Let me tell you something. Every single decision Maurice Evans made that night was a choice. He chose to harass Amari. He chose to argue instead of de-escalate. He chose to stay when he was told to leave. He chose to arm himself. He chose to wait. He chose to shoot. Dominique Goodman made one choice. He chose to answer his daughter's phone call. The investigation doesn't take long because the facts are clear. Maurice Evans shot and killed Dominique Goodman in the parking lot of a Bojangles in Palmetto on December 7th. There's no dispute about what happened. The only question is what comes next. Maurice Evans is arrested and charged with murder and aggravated assault. He's taken into custody. And here's where the legal system makes one decision that actually makes sense. Maurice Evans is held without bond. No bond. He doesn't get to post bail and go home. He doesn't get to wait for trial while walking, around free. He sits in jail, where he belongs. The case moves through the system. There will be court dates, legal proceedings, motions filed, all the standard procedure that happens when someone is charged with murder. But the core facts don't change. They can't change. Too many people saw what happened. Too many people heard the shots. Too many people know exactly who pulled that trigger and why. Amari doesn't get to sit in a courtroom and hear some complicated legal debate about what really happened. She knows what happened. She was there. She made the phone call. She watched her father drive to that parking lot to help her. And she has to live with the fact that Maurice Evans decided her father's life was worth less than his ego. The trial details, the specific testimony, the legal arguments, those will play out over time. But the outcome was decided the moment Maurice Evans chose to wait in that parking lot with a gun. It's Christmas 2024. Amari Goodman is 19 years old, preparing for her first Christmas without her father. She says,
I don't even want to celebrate Christmas because it doesn't feel right.
5 children trying to figure out how to open presents and smile and pretend everything's okay when their father isn't there. A woman carrying Dominique's 6th child, a baby who will never meet their father, never hear his voice, never feel him hold them. All because a manager at a fast food restaurant couldn't handle being told no. Robert Williams Jr. remembers his friend. The law office feels different without Dominique doing intake work. The friendship is gone. The reliable presence is gone. Williams said this case touched his heart. And you can hear why. When someone you know, someone you work with, someone you call a friend gets killed like this, it's not just a case, it's personal. Amari's words keep coming back.
He isn't a man. Any man would have stood up to another man, had a conversation with them about their daughter.
That's what should have happened. A conversation. 2 adults talking. Maurice Evans explaining himself. Dominique making it clear his daughter needs to be respected at work. Both of them walking away and moving on with their lives. Instead, Maurice Evans chose violence. He chose murder. He chose to make Amari live with the knowledge that calling her father for help got him killed. The family set up a GoFundMe. Because on top of grief, on top of trauma, on top of planning a funeral instead of Christmas celebrations. There are bills. There are expenses. There's the weight of trying to survive when the person who provided for you is gone. Dominique Goodman was described as hardworking, as a great man, as someone who led by example. Those aren't empty words people say at funerals. That's who he was. A man who worked, a man who showed up, a man who answered the phone when his daughter needed him. And that got him killed. Moving on from this story is impossible for Amari and her family. They don't get to move on. They get to figure out how to live in a world where their father, their partner, their provider is gone because a manager with a gun and a problem couldn't act like an adult. Maurice Evans sits in jail without bond. Dominique Goodman is dead. 5 kids are without their father. A baby will be born into a world where everyone talks about Daddy, but Daddy isn't there. That's the reality of December 7th. That's what happens when someone decides another person's life doesn't matter. Period.